Hello and welcome to a very special live episode of Arts Anatomy. I am your host, Darcy Love, and I am so excited to be here today with a Toronto Film School alumni, Cheyenne Lynn, who is a small-town girl from Florida, but she's a Canadian at heart. She's lived in Japan, Korea, and has now found her home here in Toronto. Recently, she has won a mentorship program through the Toronto Screenwriters Conference, and she's also a 7-time award-winning producer for her short Little Rose. Welcome to the podcast, Cheyenne. How are you? You are live. Give us a little 1-2. Some technical difficulties right here at the beginning. Cheyenne, give me a little test 1-2. All right, I'm having trouble hearing Cheyenne, but we're gonna press on. Let me know in the comments if you guys are able to hear her, and my technical producer Yazan, who is working behind the scenes beautifully, is also just going to test her mic.
1, 2,
there we go. There we go. I can hear you now.
Hi.
We are in it now. We are good to go. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
No, my pleasure. It's good to have another Toronto alumni. You are one of the very first people, firstly, one of the first people in general on the podcast, but you are our very first alumni on the podcast, so it's exciting.
Nice.
So I want to start right at the beginning, because you have traveled all over the world. How did you kind of get into filmmaking?
Well, I've always been a huge fan of films. My dad didn't make me, but he had me watching films ever since I was really little. He, at 4, he showed me his favorite film, which is Aliens, not recommended for a 4-year-old. My mom immediately took me to go see Beauty and the Beast afterwards. Or some Disney movie. But yeah, ever since then, I've always been just in love with movies and storytelling, and didn't really think I could get into it as a career until I got into high school and took a class and did the motion yearbook picture thing, and I'm like, oh, editing's not that hard. I can make movies. Then I went to film school and I was like, oh, okay, so editing's not my thing. Writing, I'll stick to writing. I'll do that. Yeah,
I think you have to have a little bit of kind of just blind faith in yourself to start a career in film. A little bit of that, oh, it's not that hard, I can make movies easy, before you really jump into things.
Yeah.
So you've been all over the world. You've lived in Florida, Korea, Japan. Can you tell us a little bit about how you ended up here in Toronto?
Yeah, I will give you a quick rundown of how I got here. I was born and raised in Florida on a military base. And normally military brats, they get to move around, go to different bases all over the world. I did not, because my parents were special forces and the biggest special forces base was in Florida. So we just stayed there. But then my mom really started missing being overseas. And so when she retired from the military, she became a teacher and then signed on to be a government contractor. And her first post was out in Japan. So once I graduated high school, 16 hours later, I was on a flight to Japan. I stayed there until we got evacuated out because of a tsunami, an earthquake that turned into a tsunami back in 2011, that whole thing. And then I ended up back in Florida, where life was pretty much getting kind of dull. So I went, my mom had then moved to Korea. And so I went to live with them. It was supposed to be for like 3 weeks. Ended up being for 3 years. And at that point I was like, you know what? I want to go film school. I've been talking about going to film school since I graduated high school. I'm going to do it now. So I baked a lot of bread, sold it to a bunch of people in Korea, and then financed my way to get here with my parents' help. A lot of this is with my parents' help.
Yeah. Parents and bread. That's what careers are based on.
Yes. At least mine.
That's awesome. So how do you find that film school helped you with your career? Because I know personally I moved here from Australia, and without film school, I don't know if I would have even known kind of where to start in film. Did you have an idea of the industry before coming to film school, or was it just a passion?
It was a very intense passion, and when I get passionate about something, I research the heck out of it. I knew that I wanted to write, and I knew that I wanted to be in charge of my own writing, because I know once you sell a script that it's no longer your baby. And I didn't want people to change anything about my scripts. I was very selfish that way. So my problem when I was figuring out what program to sign up for, I didn't know if I wanted to do the writing program or a film production program. And I chose film production because I didn't know much about that. And it was like a hands-on program. So, and I'm a tactile learner. So I wanted to learn more about the industry that way. And then they touched on, I learned all about producing and how to do a budget. And yeah, if I didn't take that program, I would have just been a writer out here. Yeah, I'm a writer, but that's about it. With the program, it helped me become more realistic in how I write my scripts and how I see the production. I can visualize it going down the line. I have a timeline for the actuality of my scripts getting made now, instead of just writing it and then hoping that the cosmos will provide something. It helps me better plan. Yeah.
Of course. And you mentioned that you learned how to produce, and since graduating, the short film you produced, Her Little Rose, has actually gone on to win 7 different awards. Can you talk me through the process of making that movie and then getting it out there, and what it feels like now that it's getting kind of that recognition?
Yeah. Okay. So with Her Little Rose, it is written and directed by the brilliant Tam Tran, who was in my class. And she came to me and wanted me to produce her film. Because we worked together before on other projects in school, and we worked well together, and she knew that I really cracked the whip when it comes to producing. But to actually have it go off and win awards in the film festival circuit, when I'm not on set or when I'm not writing, I'm volunteering at film festivals and conventions and events like that. So to be one of the films in one of those events, it was just really weird for me. It was so cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
it's
sorry,
such a cool thing to see something that you get birthed out. Yeah. So you do kind of identify as more of a writer or a director. What do you see yourself as in the world of film?
I am a writer producer. Writer first and foremost. That is my passion. That is what I was put on this earth to do. Producer is more of I love paperwork, all of the paperwork. I don't know why, I just do. I'm really good at production management and production coordinating, and I am an awesome AD. So anything that has to do with the paperwork side of film, turns out I'm really, really good at it.
That's I think that's something that people in the industry need, is someone who is good at and loves paperwork. I know as a director myself, I hate the paperwork side of things, knowing still how important it is, but it is it's really good when you can find a partner who loves paperwork. I'd also just like to remind everyone that if you've got any questions, you can ask us in the chats. We have Tim Mason has actually just popped in with a question. Tim wants to know, Cheyenne, do you act as well, or do you just write and produce?
I do not get in front of the camera if I can prevent it. Like, I took theater, like I come from theater, but I have always been a behind the scenes kind of girl. Took a couple improv classes in high school, which really busted me out of my shell. Props to Krista Whitaker. But other than that, like, no, I do my best not to act at all.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I think there's a reason why I got behind the camera. Yeah. So
I have too much respect for actors to try to get in that.
Yeah. Do you recommend, though, that people try to learn multiple disciplines within film instead of just focusing all your efforts on being a writer or an actor, producer, director? Do you think it helps to have skills that cross over, like an actor who can write or a writer who can act or produce?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's why I went to film school, so make myself more marketable. I know my talent is writing. Whoops. I did not know my talent was also paperwork. And yeah, I can act, but I don't want to. But having people who understand the language of film, especially on set, if you have an actor that knows how to talk to the gaffer, or if you have a director or a cinematographer who knows how to speak to the gaffer, or to literally, or to an actor in a language that they understand, it just makes communication so much easier, instead of being like, hey, camera dude, can you move the camera over there to hit the angle and make it do the thing? Work with the lighting guy. Like, it just makes, it keeps everybody on the same page. So yeah, multiple disciplines. There we go. That's the word.
Yeah.
Multiple disciplines are highly recommended. I mean, like, knowledge is power. So the more you know, the more powerful you are.
Yeah, and we've got a great question that's come in from, and I apologize if I butcher any names throughout today, Rafael Evangelista. Rafael wants to know, as a writer, how does it feel to be able to follow your script from the process of writing it all the way through to seeing it on set and then continuing it on to see it on screen?
I will, like, Okay, so the first time it happened, I was giddy beyond belief. And on that set, I made myself be just like a PA, because I can't be too close to it, and I was still pretty annoying for the director. But it is amazing to say the very least. Seeing what you write, like from your on the page, once you put that blood, sweat, and tears into it, and then put more blood, sweat, and tears into it, to have it be like right there live in front of you, it is ecstatic. Words cannot describe that feeling. It is just amazing. It was that feeling that solidified that, yep, nope, I'm a writer. This is what I'm meant to do for me the first time it happened. It was incredible.
That's incredible. Yeah, it's almost indescribable, the feeling of seeing something that you've worked so hard on out there being enjoyed by people. I've got another question here from Rick Kring. And Rick wants to know, is there anything that you enjoy writing more than anything else? So do you like to write plays, TV, feature films? What's your sweet spot?
I am a short form writer. I tried writing a feature once. I nearly cried, actually. But right now, my focus is web series. I'm working on a lesbian werewolf web series with my mentor.
Yeah, I'll jump into that in just a moment.
Web series, and then I hope to. Yeah, I'm working right now, and then I hope to move on to TV. I really like the idea of streaming services and how they do things, like Netflix and Amazon. So I think my sweet spot's going to be digital, 1 hour drama. Well, 1 hours and half hours, mostly 1 hour though.
Yeah. So you mentioned your lesbian werewolf show, and so I want to jump in and firstly congratulate you. For all out there listening, Cheyenne has recently won a mentorship program through the Toronto Screenwriters Conference through the Al McGee TV Diverse Screenwriters Award. A huge accomplishment, and I know I'm as a friend and alumni super proud of the work. It's awesome. Could you talk to us a bit about how you got into that? What was the process of applying for the award? What does it feel like now that you've won?
So I'm going to do the process first, because if I don't, I'm going to get confused. The process was, I found out about the Toronto Screenwriting Conference last year when I won the Diversity Initiative, when I was one of the winners of the Diversity Initiative, to bring more minority voices into the screenwriting world. That initiative was set up by Noelle Carbone, who is the writer of, is a writer of Wynonna Earp, Rookie Blue, and Coroner. She is also my mentor, which is just fantastic because Wynonna Earp is my favorite show. About the Toronto Screenwriting Conference, I went and I looked up their website, and they had a diversity initiative, and I am the epitome of diverse. Woman of color. I hit diversity trifecta. So I decided to apply, which is you write a letter, you send in a sample, and you fill out the application, and then you hope for the best. And when I won, I cried. I screenshot the email, and then I printed it up. So it's posted right next to my reference letter that I got from Karen Walton, who wrote Ginger Snaps, which is my all-time favorite movie. She wrote a bunch of other stuff, but Ginger Snaps is what I know. She's my werewolf sister in that one. No, I lost my mind. It was fantastic. I did my best to keep it a secret because they let me know about a month before, sometime before, my timeline is off. Sometime before the actual announcement, so I had to keep it to myself, and that was a test.
Yeah, that sounds super difficult.
Yeah.
So I want to jump in, and can you give us a little bit of a rundown about what this new project is? Because I mean, Lesbian Werewolves has already sold me, but what's the plot? What's the story behind it?
Okay, so Hal is about a young woman. Her name is Kendall Monroe, and she is really weird. She's a lit major who goes to a school where you can also major in occult, so it's not just a normal school. When her roommate goes missing, she decides to investigate. And she's kind of tossed into this rabbit hole of werewolf hunters, werewolves. There's an end of the world prophecy that she might be the key to. It's a lot. And she just tries to survive. Does her best to survive.
It sounds awesome. So I want to talk to you as well about, because I know that you are a huge advocate for this, and that is telling diverse stories. Making sure that there are writers of color, queer writers, women writers, and diverse storytellers. And I know the answer might seem obvious, but for you, why is that diversity so important?
Because when I look at all of my favorite lesbian ships on television, first, I don't have a lot to pick from that stand out immediately. And second, a lot of them are white. And I would love to see myself represented in that. And especially in sci-fi and fantasy, which is what I love, clearly. There's just very, very little representation of women of color, and especially queer women of color. And if they're there, then they end up dying. And I mean, we're more than just cannon fodder. We can be heroes, like in Vagrant Queen. Please renew sci-fi. Where we can lead a show and save the world and still get the girl and do it by being a woman of color. That's why it's very important to me.
That's for sure. Does it excite you to see these diversity programs that are really out there trying to advocate for these diverse stories? Does it give you hope for the future that we're going to have queer women of color leading sci-fi and fantasy shows?
Absolutely. Absolutely. With these diversity programs, it opens up a door that is normally, from what I understand, is normally closed to people like me. I'm at the beginning of my career, and I have all these programs available. So if I didn't have these programs or these groups like BIPOC TV and Film who like are hosting like mentorship Mondays. It's like I don't know what I would do. I would probably be going door to door to people and be like, "Hi, buy my screenplay. Hi, buy my screenplay." These programs and these groups are a godsend, and I am so excited for the next generation of writers, not just mine, but after me, writers and showrunners that can like just go out there and conquer the universe.
For sure. And not to put you on the spot, but do you have any recommendations for diverse stories that are out there currently that people should watch?
Oh, yes. Hang on. So Motherland Fort Salem, it's lesbian witches. And if the Salem witch trials turned them into a witch military instead of murdered all the witches, check it out. It's awesome. Vagrant Queen, which is like this 80s synth pop space adventure starring a woman of color as the lead, and she's queer. Yeah. Oh, snap. I had so many. Oh, Utopia Falls. That's my third one. I'm only going to give you 3, so I just don't take up the rest of the time. But
specifically,
Utopia Falls is
specifically Utopia Falls. We've got an acting grad, Robin Alomar, is in a Utopia Falls. So, yeah, definitely check that one out because that's even more Toronto people. That's awesome. We got a whole bunch of questions coming in, and again, apologies for butchering any names, but Saina Jalalzadeh wants to know, as a writer, are you married to the way that the script is written word for word, or are you okay with the actors improvising or changing it up every now and again when the scene calls for it?
The way that I write, or the way that I've had my experience with this is like I write a character. What I put on the page is generally what they say in my head, but when I'm talking with an actor, I want to make sure that they embody that character as much as possible. So, and this is the director side, sorry, not so much the writer. So as a writer, I don't really care if they keep it on the page. Like, as long as they get the important information, I don't care what they do with it. Yeah, as a director. Also, as long as my actors do it through the point of view of the character, or are embodying the character as much as possible. Yeah, no, as long as they get the important information out to further the story, I really don't care if they say what's on the page or not.
I think that's a good way of looking at it. I know that there are a lot of writer-directors out there, especially in the world of comedy, that you think things are improvised, but it is all on the page. So I think it kind of really depends on the situation. You know, The Office is a great example of something that feels improvised, but a lot of those moments are written down. And I think it's a testament to good writers when it feels improvised, but and a testament to good actors when you can make something feel improvised and on the fly and have dialogue that is written in such a realistic way. You know, but that being said, there are actors out there who are great improvisers. And I think if you've got someone like that, it's important to kind of keep them, use the skills you have.
Yeah, absolutely.
I also want to thank Rick for appreciating my fashion choice today. We have Rue Strawbridge wants to know, while the director knows the characters super well, they don't know it as much as the actors. Do you believe that that's true, or do you feel that the writers and directors know the characters just as well as the actors?
I'm going to argue that the writer would know more about the character. Just from my personal experience, I'm not speaking for all writers, that the writer would know more about the character than the actor. And the way that I work, my director also knows every history about every one of my characters and where they're going. My director knows the major for all of my characters, and granted they're all in college, so that's kind of important, but I'm going to argue that the writer who has with the character, has marinated with that character, has lived through that character's ups, downs, and all the arounds, would know more than the actor about that.
Yeah, I think, and it might just be my own personal bias as a writer director, but I think I would agree. I think everyone who is involved in the character should know it inside and out. I think that's an important part of the creative process.
Absolutely.
I want to also ask, you are a huge fan of the horror, sci-fi, fantasy genre. And for everyone out there who's kind of just getting into the industry, how important is it to be writing and producing things in the genre you want to be in? Because, you said Little Rose is more of a drama, as far as I'm aware, and less sci-fi fantasy.
Yeah.
Should everything you be doing be the genre you want to be, or do you think there's value in branching out to different genres?
I believe I'm going to hark back to my knowledge is power and diversifying your portfolio. But so yeah, you can always have that. But if I produced a short film that was more in the zone of what I want to do with the rest of my career, I feel like I would be further along because I would have something to show people or companies that I want to work with that I can do this. And I'm not just good at drama. It's I can also produce, write, and do horror, sci-fi. So if you don't know what you want to do, or where you want to, or what your niche is, then yeah, diversify as much as you want. But if you know exactly where you want to be and what you want to do in this industry, then focus up on that.
Yeah. So what is it about the horror, fantasy, sci-fi genre that personally draws you into it, as opposed to wanting to write a straight ensemble sitcom or a period drama feature film?
Well, you take the beauty that is, let's just say, a lesbian relationship, and then add the amazing fact that one of them's a werewolf into it, and it's just automatically 10 times more interesting. I like taking a grounded look at the supernatural. So The Order, where they have witches and werewolves fighting each other. I'm okay, cool. Because they ground that world as much as possible. It's just taking the ordinary, everyday thing that you see and making it magical. And that's what I like. It's why be normal? Never be normal.
I love that. I think that's good advice to live by. Never be normal. So let's talk a little bit about the future. What is in store for you upcoming? What are you, other than the our lesbian werewolf TV spot, what are you working on? What are you working towards?
Right now, outside of Lesbian Werewolves, I am working on a comic book with a fellow TFS alum Georgia. I cannot say her last name. I never could. Love you, Georgia. But she's a friend of mine. And we're doing a comic book called Project Deathwish, Subject Code Switch. And it is about a company that produces super soldiers. And well, actually, it's about gender fluid shapeshifter whose body morphs to everyone's perception around her, or around them. So they have no control of what they look like. And they're trying to figure out how they got these powers and how they could possibly control them, and just living day-to-day life with not being able to control what you look like. And we should be launching that next month. It's a digital comic, and it's going to be on Webtoons.
Awesome. I was going to say, give yourself a plug. Where's it going to be? So it's going to be on Webtoons, you said?
Yes.
Awesome. That's exciting. So how do you find it translates from writing for screen and writing for TV, translating that and writing for your comic book and writing for comics? Is there a crossover?
Kind of. If you can, this is where how to describe your shot, because that's what it is. Each panel is just a shot, and you got to go through it's more taxing, honestly, because you can be kind of vague when you're writing on a screenplay, because figuring out shots is someone else's job. But when you're doing a comic book, you have to put what you see in your head, like exactly for the panel. And then you give it to the artist, and it's like, please make sure that you get it right. Like, this is what I see. This is what we want to happen on the page. And it's a lot more work writing for a comic book. I respect all of my all of my comic book artists, writers, even more. That's just a lot of writing.
Yeah. Have you found that it's helped you improve your visual storytelling in your screenwriting now that you've kind of gone through this process of having to be really detailed in your writing for comics?
Yeah, I think I found a happy medium, because before I started writing screenplays, I came from prose. So I would write short stories, little novellas, really, of just random characters that popped into my head. And when I got into screenwriting, I would have to lose a lot of detail, because I would go for pages just describing what a room looks like, and people don't need to know that. But getting back into it, I found like a happy medium in my screenwriting between having enough detail, making it fun to read, and like getting my story on the page. So yeah, it's finding all these different styles of writing is just it's turning me into a more rounded screenplay writer.
Yeah, because I find that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a different skill to be able to write a screenplay and a novel and a graphic novel.
Yeah. Those are flexing three very different muscles. And like, I have the thesaurus.com tab up on my internet browser, because like when you're writing a novel, you can only say like there's a book so many times before it gets redundant and boring. And then in a screenplay, it's like you say there's a book, then you forget about it, and then maybe later like the actor does something with the book and it's like, okay, cool, remember there was a book in this scene, haha. And then in a graphic novel, it's like you write out the scene, and if there's an important thing to do with the book, then you want to bring focus to the book. You have a whole complete panel. It's like, look at this book. This is important. It calls on different areas of focus. Like, I feel in novels, you can be more broad strokes. You can have details, but you can be more broad strokes. And then in screenplays and graphic novels, it's more like, if you want this thing to be important and not brushed to the background, you make it important. Even if it's like a small little Easter egg or foreshadowing kind of thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I know that you are in the film industry, but as your own personal love, do you have a medium of writing that, you know, kind of sings to you?
Honestly, I'm gonna have to go with graphic novels and comic books. I read screenplays. I read a screenplay a day, but it's just something about the art, like the way that the artwork marries with the story, and that like, and how the artist interprets just their story and what's important. And if you like, you can catch it in one reading, or you could go back and catch it again. It's like it's like watching a movie, but you do it on your own time. And I enjoy that.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I'd just like to remind everyone, if you've got any questions for Cheyenne, leave them in the comments and we'll try our best to get to them and answer them. In the meantime, I did want to ask, what is your advice for people who are just dipping their foot into their journey of filmmaking? You know, they might be like you in high school and have cut together something on iMovie and went, I love this. This is what I want to do. What's your advice to brand new baby filmmakers?
Brand new baby filmmakers. See, if you were like me, then you were bound and determined. Nothing was going to stop you from getting to this point. Good on you. Keep that up. It might get hard. It will get hard. And you will have to take a survival job. Just push through till you're there. Got you. But yeah, the people who are less sure about exactly what they want to do, but they know that they want to do something in the industry, I encourage you to learn as much as possible. Whether in film school or not, like YouTube is a great, amazing tool. And then there's Google is also fantastic to finding out what you want to know. The information is out there. So if you want to learn anything about film, it's out there waiting for you to find it.
That's awesome. That. And you know, there's the saying that it's not what you know, it's who you know. Do you find that that's true for filmmaking? How important is having your network of fellow creatives?
Oh, this also goes back to, if you want to dip your toe into filmmaking, volunteer for everything. Volunteer at all the events, because then you'll get recognized by people you want to eventually work with. That's how I met Noelle Carbone the very first time I volunteered at a convention for Winona Earp. It didn't hurt that I had a dog with me, and everybody loves a dog, but if you volunteer and you make yourself available to go to these volunteer events and you work hard, and those people will remember you. If you're at a festival and you have a film, you've worked the festival before and you did a good job, the festival coordinators are going to want to put your film in there. If you've worked in events and you did a good job, then they're going to want to invite you back. So I highly suggest that you volunteer to get to know as many people as possible.
I think that's great advice.
Yeah.
Tim Mason asks, I think a really interesting question, and potentially a hard one to answer, but where do you see yourself in 5 years? Do you have a 5-year plan?
If you asked me this before quarantine, I could have spelt it out for you. But since quarantine, my 5-year plan has kind of taken a slight 4-month pause. Hopefully, all right, assuming everything gets back on track, in 5 years, I will be a citizen of Canada, or a permanent resident of Canada. I will have at least my first season of Howl on whatever platform, hopefully Netflix. I will be working on my second season and my spinoff series. I will be on book 4 of the comic book, and yeah, I will be being paid to be a writer. That is my 5-year plan.
So you mentioned in your 5-year plan that you wanted to become a permanent resident of Canada. Is there a reason that you want to stay in Toronto as opposed to go to New York or go to LA to become a writer?
I love New York. I went there before. It's a great city to visit, not to live. It's expensive. Toronto's expensive too, but like different kind of expensive. I would not want to live in LA. You need a car. I don't like cars. And yeah, it's just not, and their beaches are gross. Sorry, LA. From Florida.
As an Australian, I can confirm. All beaches in North America do not stand up.
Oh, I challenge you to Florida's beach. Go to Destin, or actually no, go to Navarre, Florida. You will be happy. I've had Islanders say that they're happy. So like,
okay, I'll check it out.
All right. Only good thing in Florida.
So you think that to bring us back on track of film, you do feel though that the Canadian film industry is a viable one? Like I know a lot of people think you have to be in New York and LA, but you don't believe that?
No, I came to Toronto because a lot of my favorite shows are shot here, and or have their writers' rooms here. Orphan Black was shot here. Dark Matter was shot here. The Winona Earp's writing room is here. And that's where I want to be. Like I want to be where my favorite shows are being made. So yeah. That's why, and also being a queer woman of color in the States right now, not exactly great. And as a permanent resident, I could get universal health care. So yeah. Just all of these points racking up Canada.
Awesome. Well, we are kind of running down into the last of our time here with you. Is there anything else that you wanted to say? Any other advice you have for young writers or filmmakers?
Don't be afraid to go on an adventure. The advice that I keep getting from people who are in rooms tell me that they're looking for writers who have a voice or have something to say. And you can't have something to say if you've been stuck in one spot your whole entire life. So I highly encourage you to go out and explore the world if you like. It doesn't even have to be Japan or Korea. I was extremely lucky with that. But like, just travel, go on a road trip. Like Montreal is that way, I guess. Just take a drive and have an adventure. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Cheyenne. It's been great, and I'm super excited to see how Howl come to life. And I'll be on the lookout for your graphic novel. I don't think you gave us the name. What is the name of your graphic novel?
Project Death Wish, subject Code Switch.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Cheyenne, and thank you all for tuning in here to Arts Anatomy. Don't forget you can listen back to this episode on wherever you listen to your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, and check out our first episode with Stephen Hoffner. Until next time, I've been Darcy Love, and this has been Arts Anatomy. Thank you all for tuning in.